Can you say friends, talking, nerdy? Close enough.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have Professor Aubrey.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
I'm bringing the musical portion of Friends Talking Nerdy to a close.
Darn. Well then, how about we just talk about musicals instead?
Well, aren't you on a music kick?
Apparently, I must love music. Maybe I know there's over 400 episodes worth of evidence to show that being the case, but who knew, right? And we've done over 400 episodes at this point. I seem to remember there have been times where we've touched upon talking about musicals. I don't remember a musical-specific episode, but if there is, it's so far back that, we might as well, tackle that topic again, right?
Absolutely. I do not think there has been one. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
So I think we're uncovering new ground.
Oh, yes. Just when you think we've hit the bottom of the barrel, folks, we find another layer.
Keep digging.
Yes. But what we wanted to talk about was musicals. Musicals in all their forms, really. Not just musicals that you would see on stage, but musicals that you would see in theaters, movie theaters, and or TV even. I think the general idea that we both had, feel free to elaborate further if you had a different tact in terms of thinking about it. But me, I wanted, the choices I made were ones to where the music helps tell the story. It's not just music that's in the background. And yes, I think the characters at some point do have to sing.
Yeah, the characters have to sing, for sure.
Yeah, so what we've done, like we normally do, is we've gone through our memory banks and came up with our 5 favorite choices that we want to talk about at this particular point in time, and just go over why we like it, a couple bits of obscure trivia that we found along the way for those particular musicals, and more than anything, just get people excited about musical storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how about you start us off?
Okay, I'm going to start you off with one of what's going to be one of the best on the list. And this is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Have you seen it?
No.
Have you heard of it?
Of course.
Oh.
Marilyn Monroe, yeah.
Yeah. Marilyn Monroe. Of course, featuring the iconic song, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend.
Ah.
Which actually wasn't originally a Marilyn Monroe song. It was written for Carol Channing, who was in another show on Broadway.
And then later, every 70s and 80s game show that had C or D-list celebrities on.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, Carol Channing, yeah. She was on a lot of game shows back in the day.
Gotcha. She had some kind of career, though, before that.
I think her main focus was on, the stage.
Yeah.
There are some people that, like Matthew Broderick is even one of those people who primarily works on the stage, but will dabble in TV and movies along the way. I mean, that's been the case since the 80s, because, the Neil Simon movie, Biloxi Blues, which is based on his play, in the play on Broadway, the role that Matthew Broderick plays in the film, he originated on the stage.
Oh.
So, so I think Carol Channing was more of a personality like that, because with, game shows, celebrities that you see on game shows are earning a paycheck, let's be honest.
Sure. Why are you talking so much about Carol Channing?
Because you mentioned her in terms of the Gentlemen Prefer Blonde song, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm taking over. How about you push me out of the driver's seat and continue on?
Okay, great. This musical, like many, originated in a book. It was a relatively recent book from when the musical came out in 1953. It was a 1925 satirical novel written by a woman, Anita Loos. And then it was made into the movie, which was a musical. What I love about it is the music and dancing. The dancing is really incredible. So it has Jane Russell. You familiar with Jane Russell?
Yes.
And Marilyn Monroe in it as two performers, singers, dancers, who are single and they're always looking for husbands. And the one played by Marilyn Monroe, whose name is Vicky, I believe. No, she's Vicky in no, this is like show business, but in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, she wants to marry a millionaire. And she is kind of this really vapid, or at least acts that way. In her real personality, she's very hard nosed, businesswoman. She wears glasses. She is like obsessed with marrying a rich man, though. And so they have a European tour, Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe together as a stage show act. And they're going to Europe. And so they take a steamer to Europe. And it takes like a week to get there or something. And so the musical is all about what happens on the boat and features the iconic song that we were talking about. And that segment of the movie inspired the Madonna Material Girl video. And it's wonderful to see the original, to hear Marilyn singing. It is it's something special. It's like it's one of those scenes where you realize how special Marilyn Monroe is.
Oh yeah, don't sleep on her as an actress, people. Like she was in one of the early actress studio classes, along with her contemporaries like James Dean and Marlon Brando. So she had teaching from the absolute best in the game, and the results kind of speak for themselves because, I talked about it like with Ted Knight, for instance. You're going off on another tangent. The actor who played the newsman in the Mary Tyler Moore Show,
yeah,
and stuff like that. He was very good at playing the dumb guy. Because the beauty of his performance was that he was able to play dumb while thinking he was smart. And that takes talent, the whole playing dumb thing. And I think the persona that Marilyn Monroe unfortunately ended up having was the pretty dumb blonde.
Sure.
And she played it so well that people actually believed that that was really her. And maybe, there was some truth to it in some ways, who knows. But, we're not going to believe in old stereotypes anyway, right?
No.
Yeah, she was a very talented actress. What is that movie she did with Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis?
Where they go to Florida?
Yeah, and Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis.
Pretending to be women?
Yeah. Some Like It Hot.
Oh, yes. Some Like It Hot.
An absolute classic.
Not a musical.
But it has musical elements.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis are musicians who see people in the mob do a hit, so they have to go into hiding, and they hide on a train as women and play along in a women band along with Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you've seen the movie.
I've seen that one, yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about it?
Some Like It Hot?
No. The musical we were talking about.
Oh, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. I've not seen that.
Oh, okay.
The only Marilyn Monroe one I saw is Some Like It Hot.
Some Like It Hot is the only one you've ever seen.
Yes.
We should check out the catalog because she is so great.
We just have the next week's worth of movies planned immediately. Yeah.
Maybe more than a week.
Yeah. No, she's a great actress. I'd definitely give another one of her films a looky.
Yeah, we could watch The 7-Year Itch. That's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, my sister and I used to dance to this musical, and we sort of knew every step of it. It was great fun. She was always the blonde because she's blonde, and I was always Jane Russell, and I was totally fine with that. Because Jane Russell, super hot. Although I don't know how any of the women in the movie wore what they wore and danced around to the extent that they danced around.
Well, I
Because
mean,
it was all very tight fitting.
think of when we went to Mopop and took the picture of the dress that Judy Garland wore in The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like in her early 20s at the time, and they had to essentially encase her in that dress in order to like flatten everything out to make her look younger.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know how she breathed. She ended up taking a lot of drugs to get through that.
Wow. Hardcore, man.
Yeah. But Marilyn Monroe ended up tragically passing away. It was no secret that she was dealing with some mental health issues. Probably didn't help that she had that affair with the president, John Kennedy.
Well, we think.
Yeah. I mean, there are conspiracy theories out there because I guess she not only had an affair with John Kennedy, she had one with Robert Kennedy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are conspiracy theories out there that she didn't do the job herself. Someone else helped.
Oh, that she put a hit out on him?
That they had her offed to make it look like, she did the job herself.
I see.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations too, to where, I believe an autopsy was done, and they noted how much drug she had in her system at the time, and I think people said the same thing like about Kurt Cobain. And there've been other ones like there's no way a person could take that much. People can build up a high tolerance for stuff. You don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened with Prince is something like that.
Yeah.
And Michael Jackson, I think.
Michael Jackson.
They had been being prescribed this medication for so long and had built up such a high tolerance to it that you very easily go over the edge of what your body can handle. Like there is a point at which you're about to overdose.
Yeah, because like especially with the heavy stuff, people, it's like, we have past episodes showing that I'm not one to throw stones. Like, I think people can and do enjoy harder illicit drugs and still are able to function normally in society. But you do have to understand that those hard illicit drugs could, easily take you from you can handle it to everything's out of control.
Real quick.
And so that's something that people should keep in mind with that, because you don't want to build up such a tolerance, because think of like any rock star you can think of who's dealt with like massive drug problems. They've had people just giving them drugs. Here's some coke, man, here's this, here's that, and they don't really have to go out and buy it, so it's easy. And yeah, anyway, she ended up having a sad life, but her legacy, I think, will continue to live on, because even with the roles that she took that made her seem like the ditzy blonde, there's still a power in her performance.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a wonder to watch.
She is. And lost her too soon. It would have been awesome to see her in movies in the 60s or the 70s. Maybe she could have done kind of the darker turns that like Betty Davis and Joan Crawford ended up doing later in their career, because they both ended up doing like horror movies along the way.
Well, Mommy Dearest was pretty much a horror movie.
Yeah, but that was actually a biopic. Joan Crawford didn't actually have anything to do with that one. It's just about her.
Right.
Yeah, but what's that?
It was about her life, though.
About her life told through her adopted daughter,
right,
who she disowned. Yeah, but what's that? The Baby Jane movie?
Rosemary's Baby?
No, Baby Jane.
Who's afraid of Baby Jane?
Joan Crawford and Betty Davis did that horror movie in the early 60s, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Oh.
Yeah, so it would have been nice to see Marilyn kind of branch out into just roles that were different, but, at least we got what we got, right?
Yeah.
All right. How about I dive into my first choice?
That'd be great.
Yes, enough of the rambling, Jim. This is a movie that's actually been reviewed on Friends Talking Nerdy before, but a long time ago. It is in our archive, so feel free to go back and talk about it. But what I wanted to do is talk about it again with you because I initially talked about it with Kim the Geek. This is one of my favorite musicals. It is a film that I would also say is not going to be for everybody if for a number of reasons. I think the big reason alone is that this was made as a college film and then ultimately sent to Troma Entertainment, the purveyors of such fine art as The Toxic Avenger, Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD, and The Class of Nukem High.
Yep.
Yeah, so being that it was a college movie, it's not the polished type of movie you would expect from the people in question now. Those people in question, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, Cannibal the Musical. I don't
Yay.
think I ever showed it to you. I've shown you a couple of songs on YouTube, but that's about it. You've escaped it so far.
I have I? I feel like you made me watch it.
I don't believe I did.
Well, the little snippets I've seen have been so tiresome that it seems like I've watched the whole movie.
Okay, well, well, the movie in question, like I mentioned, had a different title. When it was his student film, they originally called it Alfred Packer the Musical. But when the movie was submitted to Troma, Troma said, unless you are in that regional Colorado area to where they're familiar with Alfred Packer, outside of that, nobody knows who the guy is, so call it Cannibal the Musical.
Mm-hmm.
So they switched the name on there. If you got the DVD from Troma Studios, there's actually a hidden commentary, which is awesome. It's Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and like all the guys that were in the movie. They're in a hot tub and they're drunk and they talk about talk shit about a lot of people.
Yeah.
In there, but like there's a lot of the seeds of South Park in Cannibal the Musical.
Really?
Yes, like the main story is the Trey Parker character. His horse ends up running away with a trapper. His horse, Leanne.
Oh.
Leanne, the name of Cartman's mother, which was very much intentional because, as you find out in the hidden commentary, Trey Parker named Leanne, the horse, and then Eric Cartman's mother after an ex-girlfriend who left him for an assistant manager at a restaurant.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So, like, every nasty thing he ever said about Leanne was about an ex.
Wow.
And there's like one point in the commentary where he's like, "Oh yeah, now he's a manager at that restaurant. Now I have $1 million. Did you make the right choice?" But the movie, like I said, it's not polished. Yeah, it's a movie that maybe some herbal remedies can help you enjoy better, if you get my drift. But what holds it all together beautifully is the music. The sky is blue and all the leaves are green. The Spadoinkle Day song. If you remember at the end of the early seasons of South Park, they would have that playing and then do 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 do.
Yeah.
That's the song Spadoinkle from Cannibal the Musical.
Really?
Yes. My favorite, though, is Let's Build a Snowman.
Yeah.
I think that's the one I've definitely showed you. That's where they're lost. The group is lost. They don't know what to do. They're hungry. And there's a guy who just, I know what to do. What's that? Let's build a snowman. We can make him our best friend. Does a tap dance in a hole in the snow. Obviously, you don't see his feet, but they have the sound effect of, feet tapping, and he's pretending along and miming along with it. He built a snowman, and of course, one of the snowman at one point ended up looking like one of the aliens that you saw in the early seasons of South Park, the gray aliens that would be in the background. Also, if you keep your ear out, you're going to hear Eric Cartman.
Really?
Yes. Early version of the Eric Cartman voice was used at one point in the film.
And you're not going to tell me I have to pick it out?
It's quite obvious.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they switch to a scene and then you hear a voice that is Cartman singing the last bit of a song. Like, you can't miss it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like in the background that you have to have like earphones in to hear specifically. But Cannibal the Musical, I love it. And based on the true story of the first convicted cannibal in American history,
Whoa.
Alfred Packer.
I see.
Also, last bit of trivia, too, the opening courthouse scene, which was inspired by a Star Trek episode, the courthouse in question was the actual courthouse where Alfred Packer was convicted.
Whoa.
Yeah, so some authenticity there. I know you haven't seen it, so you don't have much to say, I presume.
No, I mean, I'm fascinated. I want to know what became of him.
Alfred Packer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a movie.
I know, there's a movie.
Yep.
We should watch it sometime.
Yeah, maybe. How about you talk about your next choice?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about my next choice. It's a 60s musical, and it is called Hair. Give me a head with hair. Long, beautiful hair. So, Hair came out in 1968. It was a groundbreaking musical in that it had a nude scene. It had references and talking about and using drugs. It had people expressing sentiments against the Vietnam War and making fun of being, I guess, a normie.
Yeah.
Not a, cool drug-addled person. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's about this guy named Claude who has a bunch of friends who are anti-establishment, and they like to hang out in Central Park and dance around and take drugs and have sex. These people then disappear, and Claude is left with just his few friends, and he gets drafted. And so he has to go in to get review, right, to see whether he can be in the army. And there's, ultimately he has to go in the army. And then I think it's unclear at the end whether he dies or not. It's just all about, this guy and his journey from being kind of a normal person to being more of a counterculture person and making choices along the way that led him to the ability to do what he has to do while not, driving himself crazy.
Which is why he went to war. But I think to your point, though, I think it shows the story of a person who saw that there was more to life than the life that he grew up in, wanted to experience the world. And I think if the going to war thing is a sign of anything, it's like the Lady and the Tiger story. You could either say that, he did either die or got wounded and then went back and had a normal life, or, ended up doing something amazing and ended up being a counterculture, continued to be a counterculture person, at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
That's the beauty of an open-ended story. You could read something positive or negative into it.
Yeah, it's definitely open to interpretation.
Any famous songs I would know from that movie?
Well, there's the hair song, Give Me a Head with Hair. Long, beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, steaming, flash of waxing. No?
Yeah.
How about The Age of Aquarius?
Okay, yeah, familiar with that one.
Other good ones that I can remember the words of. I mean, there's one that just lists a bunch of drugs, and one that just lists a bunch of sex acts.
Yeah.
So it's very avant-garde for the time,
Yeah, all the hip cats went to see it. Well, all right then. How about I dive into my second choice? This choice, the theme song, recently entered the public domain.
Ooh.
So you can sing it and make all the money you want off of it, and the ghost of Gene Kelly can't do shit about it. We're going to be talking about Singin' in the Rain.
Doop-de-doop.
Do-do-do-do-do-do.
First time I ever saw Singin' in the Rain, it was in a theater, an old theater. It was very cool. I was sat in the balcony.
I would definitely love to see that movie in theaters. I only first saw it on TV when I was bored. There was nothing else on, and I was house sitting for these people, and they had a video cassette of Singin' in the Rain, and I thought, why the hell not?
Yeah.
Popped it in, immediately fell in love with it. Just one hell of a great movie. Debbie Reynolds is in it, the mother of Princess Leia.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie Reynolds is her name, of course. She would later go on to own a casino that was purchased by the WWE.
What?
Yeah, they were going to have a Las Vegas casino, but those plans fell through. Darn.
Everything's just 6 degrees of separation from the WWE.
Damn right. They get their claws and everything. But one bit of trivia here is that Debbie Reynolds' character in the movie is a voice double for another actress, yet her singing was dubbed in some scenes for that movie.
Her singing was dubbed in?
Yes. So, like, yeah, it's like they either just muted the sound on the original film and then put the new sound over top of it, or she just lip synced or something like that.
Mm.
I probably think the former. That makes more sense, but a little bit of irony there. And of course, in the famous Gene Kelly Singing in the Rain song, the iconic rain in the title number was actually a mix of water and milk to show up better on camera, causing Gene Kelly's wool suit to shrink as he danced. And apparently, if I'm not mistaken, too, when he filmed that, he had the flu. So filming it for that long to where his suit was shrinking up and he's feeling like shit, but he has to exert himself as much as he did in that. I'm sure he felt like shit. The story is that he was not a nice guy on set.
Really?
Yeah, I ended up making Debbie Reynolds cry on a few occasions. My understanding is that he did make peace with her, so people are human. They make bad mistakes, I guess. But one hell of a film. Like, if you are not a fan of musicals, I generally am not the hugest fan of musicals myself. Like, I like what I like. I should put it that way.
Uh-huh.
It's not that I don't like musicals. It's that I'm very particular about the types of musicals I see. And because of that, I hope my recommendation to our friends out there for Singing in the Rain means something there. You got to see this movie. This is why movies are made.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I loved it. And it was very surprising. I was kind of hesitant to want to see it because I'm not a super old movie buff. And I was like, oh, this is just some old movie, it's dumb. And it's so great. The music is great, the dancing is great, the story's great. You care about the characters and what's going to happen to them. And it's those movies, those musical movies are just so upbeat. They're from that time when everybody was pretending like there were no problems anywhere.
Yeah.
Which, maybe if you look at some of our movies today, it looks that way too.
Yeah, maybe. But a lot of movies out there are like Marvel movies now. So.
Yeah, complete fantasy.
Yeah. How about you dive into your next choice?
Okay, my next choice is There's No Business Like Show Business. 1954 classic starring primarily Ethel Merman.
Ooh.
But also including Donald O'Connor, who is one of my favorite comedic musical actors.
And wasn't he in Singing in the Rain?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the other guy.
Make 'em laugh.
Yeah. He was the other dude.
Yep.
Yep. He's been in so many musicals. He's always so good in them. So, the people say, even though that Marilyn Monroe was in this movie, she had quite, a not a bit part. She played a musical actress, and the story involves her in that she falls in love with their son, Ethel Merman's son, and drama ensues. It's a family of 5, and it's all about this family and how they run into problems and in love and work and all those things. And it was written by Irving Berlin, and it was probably the most popular thing that Irving Berlin ever wrote. So, as I said, apparently there was quite some disconnect between Ethel Merman and Marilyn Monroe in that they really didn't like each other. And luckily they don't have very many scenes together in the whole movie. And the ones that they do, Ethel Merman's character actually doesn't like her in the movie.
Yeah, she's
playing that I don't like her, allowed her to act like she didn't like her in real life.
She could channel the reality. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
There are plenty of stories like that with the young actors from the 50s who went to the actor studio working with actors that were not used to that method.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot of times the older actors, they were contract players. It was, here's the script, memorize these lines, and be at the studio to film it on this day.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the actor studio crowd, like your Marlon Brandos, your James Deans, Marilyn Monroes, they had to become the characters.
Uh-huh.
And that meant getting into the right mood. That meant not accepting the first take, the fifth take, the 27th take. You had to get it right.
Uh-huh.
And there is definitely some sense into that. Like I do think the method acting type of stuff, there are people that do take it way overboard that are just absolutely ridiculous because, not everything needs to have the method acted style done to it. If you're doing an Adam Sandler comedy, you don't need to become his best
Tommy
friend.
boy.
Or something like that. You can just be silly, but I can understand how Ethel Merman and did not necessarily like working with Marilyn Monroe and vice versa.
Yeah, they were both the prima donna
Yeah.
of whatever they were in, and then all of a sudden there were two. Sort of like Britney and Christina Aguilera.
Yeah, even though they both got their start on the new Mickey Mouse Club.
I know, so did Justin Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake and Ryan Gosling as well.
Ryan Gosling.
And Carrie Russell. Felicity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hated that fucking show.
I never watched it.
My sister liked it for a bit, so it was on. Thankfully, it was on at the time that we would have the Disney Channel free preview weekend.
Oh, uh-huh.
Because back in the day, the Disney Channel was kind of like HBO. You had to pay extra for that.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it was not like Nickelodeon,
I remember when cable was like 18 channels, and you were like, fuck, there's 18 channels?
What am I going to watch? And now we're like...
Now there's 7 million there's an unlimited number of channels.
And that's not even talking about streaming. Like streaming services, you are your own program director,
Yeah.
if you have access to all that. But anyway, I've not seen that myself. I mean, I'm obviously familiar with the title. There's no business like show business.
Like no business I know.
Yes. Yeah, but there is something about those American songbook type of songs that I think will continue to speak to people in the years to come, because Singing in the Rain, like I mentioned, is in the public domain now. When the movie was released in 1952, it wasn't, obviously, but it was like like a little over 20 years later after the song was written. So they were able to make it sound different than the original recording in the late 20s, early 30s. And like if somebody covered it now, like think about that. So kind of the same thing with no business like show business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great music will continue to be appreciated.
Yes.
Speaking of that, how about I dive into my next choice?
Let's do it.
Some people may not consider this a musical, and, for the sake of what we're doing today, I will lump it in just because the characters in question are generally singing to other people, and, you could argue that the songs that are being sung don't necessarily advance the story, but being that the story is about a band over a hard day's night,
Mm-hmm.
I think it does fall, for me, I guess, into the musical category. I can appreciate someone not necessarily agreeing with me, but, I think it does. What do you think?
I think it does. I do think it does.
Yeah. But
I mean, mine have all been classic musicals, and yours have been a little bit different.
Little quirky, let's say. Sing in the Rain would probably be the most standard one on my list.
Yeah, exactly.
But A Hard Day's Night, what a great movie. Directed by Richard Lester, who ultimately ended up directing Superman's 2 and 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, interesting story there. The movie was written around the song "A Hard Day's Night" because it was one of those weird phrases that Ringo would come up with every now and then. Like he says something about, "Oh, I've been doing this 8 days a week," and John Lennon was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make $1 million.
Uh-huh.
And same thing with this. He said something about, oh, it's been a hard day's night. And, John and Paul took it and ran with it from there. And the whole idea is it's essentially like a 24-hour visit with the Beatles in London. And then at the end of the movie, they, end up playing a concert in which a young Phil Collins is in the audience.
Oh.
Yes. And no, it's not like a John Paul, Ringo, George, and Phil movie. It's just he was an extra.
Right. Can you even see him in the movie?
I believe he did find himself, but it's one of those deals where you'd have to like freeze frame.
Right.
Yeah. So, Our Day's Night, great music. And I think it did kind of showcase the personalities of the Beatles quite well.
Uh-huh.
And how can you not love Ringo when that reporter asks, are you a mod or a rocker? Which was two different gangs in England at that time.
Yeah, I bet.
And Ringo was like, I'm a mocker. Or George, of course, how did you get to America? Turn left to Greenland. And then the whole subplot with Paul's grandfather, who's so clean. Oh, and then another one of my favorite lines, that old guy who goes into the train car at the beginning of the film when the Beatles are listening to rock and roll music on the radio, turns it off and gets into a vocal argument with the Beatles. And then he goes, I fought the war for you. And then Ringo's like, John said, I bet you're sorry you won.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, anyway. Hard Day's Night, I know you've seen that movie.
Surely I have. I don't have vivid memories of it. Did we watch it together?
We did. That's the time. What is that local video store here in town?
Movie Madness.
Movie Madness. We rented it from Movie Madness along with help.
Right. Yeah.
So memorable.
I don't remember it. So.
Yeah. It's just a fun movie. Like, there's a reason people still talk about it. Like, it is a great film, but it's not a grand spectacular. It's just a fun little quirky visit with this band at the whole start of the roller coaster of their career.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of great laughs and just great music throughout.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
I mean, it's the Beatles. What do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, right?
Right? Like, they're not going to have a good soundtrack?
Yeah. I know.
To their movie?
That's right. Speaking of that, how about you dive into your next choice?
Oh, right. My next choice is Les Misérables. It is a musical that was adapted from Victor Hugo's book. And then in the 1980s, and he wrote that, I think, in the 1860s?
Roughly, yeah.
And it was released in 1980 in the United States.
The musical, not the book.
Not the book, no. The book is very old. It's a very old story, but is told in a new way in 1980 in the United States, in 1985 in London, where it has been operating nonstop since 1985, except for COVID. So it's a very popular musical. I've seen it in a theater. I didn't see it on Broadway. It's really great in the theater. I really enjoyed seeing it. The movie, I did not care for. I had my own version of it in my head.
You're not it.
No. Yeah, the movie. I mean, I had the version of it that was in the play, in the musical.
For me, I've never seen or listened to the musical. I have read the book. Love the book.
You would love the musical.
I think I have an aversion to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Unless it's a South Park. Come on, brah.
You want to fight me, brah?
Yeah, brah. Yeah, and I've seen some Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff. We're going to talk about another one on your list here. But that's the thing with Les Misérables, too, is the fact that the book is so long that a lot of the adaptions, if you put them together and watch them all, you can see that they don't all have to follow the same beat,
Uh-huh.
I also do really like the 90s movie Les Misérables that had Liam Neeson and Uma Thurman.
Oh.
And what was that guy's name? Not Gerard Butler. Um, I'm not going to do a deep dive. It doesn't matter who played it, but there was a guy who played the Inspector Javert. Was really good. Trying to chase after Liam Neeson and all that stuff, but just yeah,
I like to see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good one. Yeah, I did not see the one with Wolverine in it.
No.
Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman.
Yeah. It wasn't good.
Okay. Anything else about Les Misérables you want to commiserate about?
Ba 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 ba. No, I mean, check it out. It's good.
All right. Well, how about I dive into my next choice? This will be the only musical that we're going to talk about from my choices that I've seen on the stage. It was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was at DeVos Hall. I believe the name has been changed, but it's like DeVos something. It's where all of the traveling Broadway shows would come and play at DeVos Hall, except for the Phantom of the Opera. I guess there was a set piece in the Phantom of the Opera that could not fit into the cargo doors for DeVos Hall to get it installed.
Oh, whoa.
Which I think with the remodel that they ended up doing on it about a decade or so ago, ended up fixing that particular issue. But I saw The Who's Tommy on stage.
Wow.
When I went to see it at the time, I thought that this would have been the closest I would get to see, The Who live. Thankfully they ended up reuniting and I did see them live in Grand Rapids at Van Andel Arena in 2002. But at the time I thought that this was going to be the closest, but just awesome show. It's taken from the classic album from The Who called Tommy from the 60s. A lot of the same songs, but there's a lot of stuff that's reworked as well.
Uh-huh.
Because like in the on the album they talk about the father of Tommy going off to war and they make it and they reference it as like World War One.
Oh, uh-huh.
Whereas in the movie from the 70s or the Broadway play they move it to a World War II story.
I see.
When Pete Townsend was putting it all together when adapting for Broadway, he used the synclavier, a high-end digital music workstation, to rework and orchestrate many parts of the original rock opera. This allowed him to blend rock instrumentation with theatrical orchestration in ways that were cutting edge for the time. And we're talking like 91, 92.
Oh, okay.
So there is that. And the gentleman who played Tommy on stage on Broadway, Michael Cerveris, I believe his name is.
My girl?
Mm-hmm. Michael,
okay.
I didn't say my girl.
I thought you said my girl.
No, I did not.
Okay.
I swear, we have it on tape. All right. He famously shaved his head to portray the emotionally detached and traumatized lead character. The look became so iconic that he kept the bald look for years, and it became a personal trademark even after the show. Us bald guys got to represent.
Represent it.
Yeah, but I had a fun time watching this show at the DeVos Hall. And the reason I ended up really enjoying it was at intermission, I bumped into one of the ushers who I happened to go to high school with.
Hey.
And he ended up, for the second half of the show, getting me a front row seat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I saw the second part of the show, and which was awesome, too, because at the end, when they do the whole listening to you, I get the music, the last song they sing,
Uh-huh.
the actors are singing it as if to the audience, and it was fun because I'm sitting there happy, enjoying the music, singing along, and then I turn around and see all those people out there, at a Broadway type of show like that, when you have a place that can seat like 5,000 people, it's quite the view.
Yeah.
So I know you're at least familiar with the album. Did you either see the version of Tommy in the 70s, or did you see the Broadway play, or listen to the soundtrack?
I have heard some songs from the soundtrack, and I did watch the original movie.
Oh, that's a whole different story altogether, that movie. It's like if cocaine made a movie, it would be Tommy from the 70s.
Yeah.
Because, they were like, you know, you know what, man? How about we get Jack Nicholson to sing? Yeah, man, dude.
Yeah, no, it's absurdist.
Yes. Anne Margaret, though, was really damn good in that movie.
Yeah.
And she played Tommy's mother. And interesting enough, I guess about a year or two ago, she ended up releasing another single. I mean, she's a musician herself.
Uh-huh.
And Pete Townsend actually contributed the guitar work on that new single. So, they're still friends and all that stuff.
That's great.
But that movie, wow. If you watch it for anything, watch it for Elton John singing Pinball Wizard. I think that's the highlight of the movie.
Oh, yeah. Surely it has to be.
Yeah.
Elton John singing Pinball Wizard.
Exactly.
So good.
All right. How about you dive into your last choice?
Okay, my last choice here is Jesus Christ Superstar. This is the story of the Passion of Christ as told through a
Disco. No.
hippie electro musical. It was a rock opera, just like Tommy, only it was about Jesus and his time before he had to carry the cross and die and all that shit. It's mostly the story of how Judas betrayed Jesus, which I guess is the Passion.
Yeah.
I don't know what they called the Passion. I just remember there was this thing in the mountains called the Passion Play every summer. That was a play of Jesus getting killed on the cross. Like a live action play.
I mean, it's like if you're gonna make a play off of a Bible story, like it's written in the Bible, so it can have a benign intention, but also the Passion Play throughout the years has historically been done to rile people up to do anti-Semitic stuff afterwards. Which obviously not good. You don't want to encourage that. Blah blah blah.
No. Obviously not.
Yeah.
So in my house, we used to listen to this every Easter, which was the classic Easter thing to do. So it was controversial for a number of reasons, just like Jesus was, because there's the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, who it's implied has a sexual relationship with Jesus, or at least a romantic relationship with Jesus. They portray Jesus as just a regular person instead of a godlike figure. They take a sympathetic view of Judas. So they kind of really pissed everybody off because these would all be blasphemous things to say. But they didn't care, and they did it anyway, but it was banned in South Africa, and there were protests in the United States about it. The original person on the album that sang Jesus's part is Ian Gillan. Have you ever heard of Ian Gillan?
Sounds familiar.
He was, must have been a really great singer because it's a very difficult musical to sing.
He sang with Deep Purple.
And he sang with Deep Purple, yes.
Ian Gillan. That's right. Okay. The Gillian threw me off, but I think he ended up singing. He also sang with Black Sabbath too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After Dio only did a couple of albums with them with Black Sabbath in the early '80s, and he needed a new singer. So yeah.
And had to be a good one, right?
Yeah, but Ian Gillan is the singer who did "Smoke on the Water."
Yep, the Deep Purple "Smoke on the Water."
Yeah, he was Jesus.
Yeah, he was Jesus. He was a very good Jesus, apparently. I've never heard that recording.
Yeah. I've seen the movie. I have. It was in Grand Rapids at the public library. It was, I was in high school, like after school, they would just show movies on occasion, and a movie's a movie. It was free, good price for me, so I went to see it, and it wasn't for me. I do believe this is one of Andrew Lloyd Webber's first musicals, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things like wrestling that you're either going to be all in for it or you're not.
Yeah, agreed.
Tied into wrestling again. USA!
USA! USA!
But any other memories of enjoying it as a family on Easter.
Well, I mean, just this most recent Easter, I walked into my mom's house and it was playing on the TV. Like, it was just always playing on the TV in the background, like every Easter.
Yeah. Oh, yet another wrestling connection with this movie.
What?
Superstar Billy Graham, the wrestler in the 70s who was briefly a WWF champion when they were the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Everybody from Hulk Hogan to Jesse Ventura kind of, ripped off his, 24-inch pythons, dude, type of deal. But when he came back to the WWF in the 80s, he had Jesus Christ Superstar as a theme song.
Really?
Yeah, you'd come out to the ring and, brother, don't take steroids, brother.
He was anti-steroid guy.
Because he took so many, he saw the results of what they can do to your body. He ended up having to retire in his early 40s. Even though if you look at the video of him now in his early 40s, you could have sworn he was like in his 60s then. That's how weird people aged back in the day. But he, ended up having to have a hip replaced because of all the damage from the steroid usage.
Yeah, I'll not do that stuff.
Yeah. But another tie-in to Jesus Christ Superstar. We tied in professional wrestling, Black Sabbath, and Smoke on the Water to Jesus Christ Superstar.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What a show. High five.
High five.
All right. Shall I wrap things up?
Yep.
My last choice here, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Of course.
Of course. A classic movie. I remember being a little reluctant going in to see it because I was like, oh, musical. Because it starts off, there's a bunch of birds in the sky, and you'd think it's just going to be like that, and then it just starts kicking in with the wackiness, and by the time they got the Terrence and Phillip, shut your fucking face, Uncle Fucker, I was dying laughing.
Yes.
Great moments in the film, when the military general tells the military plans, of how Operation Human Shield, which is all the black guys, are going to be standing in front of all the white guys, and Operation Get Behind the Darkies. You have Chef say something like, have you ever heard of the Emancipation Proclamation? And the general goes, I don't listen to hip-hop. Just the, edgy 90s stuff, folks. Or when he shot Bill Gates in the face.
Yeah.
That was fun. But just the music, I loved it, And then the whole kind of verbal medley at the end, with Chef, everything worked out. What a happy end. And just how the camera would pull back and you see all the people in South Park, and then it ends with a whale in the middle of Colorado, jumping into frame, and you see Kenny finally going into heaven. Initially, when they made this movie, they thought that the South Park TV show was about to be canceled soon, so they wanted this to be their final hurrah.
Whoa.
And if you think of South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut in that way, it does seem like a great ending.
It does.
Yeah. Thankfully, the show has gone on. I do wish that they had pulled the trigger and made Imagination Land a movie, but they did not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that would have not been a great movie. It wouldn't have done well at the box office.
I would have seen it. I'm a sucker for their work. I mean, I've seen Orgasmo, after all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's precisely why they shouldn't cater to you as an audience.
Yeah, I'm filthy. The film does hold the Guinness World Record for the most swearing in an animated film at the time of release, with over 400 swear words.
Wow.
And Robin Williams ended up performing the song Blame Canada at the Oscars. Blame Canada was nominated for an Oscar because the original cast wasn't allowed to sing the uncensored version live on TV. I do wish that they had pulled the trigger on the person that that did show interest. I don't know if she was asked or not, but Anne Murray wanted to sing that song.
Really?
And she's mentioned in Blame Canada, and they call her a bitch.
Wow.
But she gets the job, obviously.
Uh-huh.
I know we've a few months back ended up seeing the 25th anniversary re-release in theaters, and I know you've already owned that film. something you've seen many, many times. Any thoughts on South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut?
I mean, see if you haven't seen it. My God, it's so good. It's so good. I mean, if you like South Park at all, like if you could stand to watch it, you should watch the movie because it's really good.
Definitely the best output of the early years of the show. There's a before Chef and after Chef. I think you got to think of the show in that way.
Yeah.
It is kind of sad too how Isaac Hayes left the show because word came out after his death that it wasn't necessarily him pulled it out. He was dealing with some health issues at the time, and people that were working for him that were also a part of Scientology. Isaac Hayes was a Scientologist, and after the Trapped in the Closet episode,
He
ended up quitting for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sad end there, but musicals, people. Ended on death. Way to go, Tim.
Yay, dead.
Yeah, we're all gonna get there just like, this episode at some point.
They'll find it frozen in the glacier.
Yes, and then...
The Great Cascadia Glacier.
Thousands of years from now, this will be the digital form of Peeps.
Peeps.
Oh... Anyway, musicals, people, they are great. Even if you are someone who says that you are not a fan of musicals, I would urge you to explore. There is good stuff out there, and explore in a sense too of like some of the choices I made. I can concede that others may not view them as a musical, like A Hard Day's Night, for instance. Mm-hmm. But if you do view something like that as a musical, watch it, enjoy it, have fun. Sing along, most importantly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Any other thoughts for our friends at home?
Nope.
All right, how about we end things for the week?
That sounds good, Tim.
All right, I got you to do it. Each Monday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
And thanks for all the fish. Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.